Maybe the one sec. You got it.
Good morning, good morning. This is Coffee coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio with the BlackAnthropy radio show produced by NoStaticRadio.net here in Cleveland. And BlackAnthropy is an extension of my freelance journalism. Uh, BlackAnthropy's mission is to shine a black light on people, nonprofit organizations, for-profit businesses and entrepreneurs who are impacting the lives of individuals, families, and the community by providing knowledge that we need, resources to help us, opportunities to further our own lives, and be an inspiration for others. And today, I am fortunate to have another guest, Ms. SARA CONTINENZA, founder and executive director of Food Strong, who checks every last one of those boxes. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being our guest this morning on BlackAnthropy.
Honor is all mine.
So, Food Strong, please tell us what Food Strong is and why you started that in 2018. What is Food Strong? What's your mission?
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me. It's a true honor. Food Strong is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to using fresh foods as a tool to educate, empower, and cultivate health throughout Northeast Ohio. That's our mission statement. What does that mean? We go into schools and educate our youth on the process of growing their own gardens.
Grade schools, high schools?
Both, all. So we have a
community college
that's K through senior, but then we also go to apartments and senior housing and community groups and events, and we educate people at all ages. Our school programming is K through 12, but we reach out to a lot of other different groups as well. Basically, the premise is food is medicine. Food is the best medicine, and we have to be more connected with our land and with the things we're putting in our bodies, because they have extreme impacts on our daily lives, on our communities, on our future, on our environment, and all these things go back to justice.
Yes.
Because, when you look at how some of the conditions we're currently struggling with, whether it's public health, whether it's lead in our soil, our environmental factors, all these different things, directly related to policies and procedures that were put into place in the turn of the last century that still have devastating impacts on our communities today. And to me, I just can't rest easy knowing that a couple miles away from where I live, in South Euclid, in a community like East Cleveland, which at one point was one of the richest cities in the entire world.
Yes.
Now, people they would have to get on multiple buses to get a banana. There's not one grocery store in the entire city of East Cleveland, and that's criminal. Everyone deserves access to basic human rights, and that includes real food, not just these food-like substances that are widespread everywhere. They look and taste like food, but you brought a good point earlier when we were talking. If there's 300 nuggets for $5, that's probably not real food.
Yeah, it's probably not. 99 cent hamburgers.
What is it? But we have to be more knowledgeable about that, because the impact it has on our lives, our health, and our futures is devastatingly huge. And our kids are getting addicted.
Yep.
And even, positively reinforced with, these chemical agents. Oh, you did good at school today, kid? Here's some candy. Here's those Takis. Here's the this, the that. And we're like, well, just hold up. I'm not going to say not doing this. As you have your own choices you make, but I just want you to learn, what is Red 40? What are some of these chemical agents? What are they made of? So when our kids start delving into, okay, what's petroleum that makes this Red 40?
Yes.
And what is that? It's the byproduct of turning oil into gasoline, and that's what makes these quote-unquote foods flammable. Then you start thinking about, okay, what is that really going to do to me? And then the thing is, these chemical agents and all the sugars, the salts, the fats are physically addictive.
And it is interesting that you say they're flammable, because I tell my sister that all the time. Like when something happens, one, by having a very limited menu every day of what I eat, it helps me to be able to detect when I get sick, potentially what it is. And I told myself, you have to pay attention because there's a lot of information in food. And so that is so interesting that you said that. But one thing I want to go back to that I heard yesterday, and with this being your area of expertise, but I watch Dr. Senyata Aman on Nubia on Sunday mornings, and she said something so interesting, such a small statement that was so profound that you touched on. You said food is what?
Medicine.
She said yesterday, and I never thought about it like this: everything you put in your body is either good for you or bad for you. She said it's a poison or something
every
else.
bite of food you take, you're either feeding disease or fighting it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what she was saying.
Quotes.
Yeah, and it was just and again, when you talk about you can't get a banana. And one big issue that's coming out of the food deserts and insecurity and all of these things that we're experiencing now is like what you said. When you can't get a banana, when you can't get an apple, for how many miles? And someone brought up the fact that when years ago, when you used to drink Kool-Aid, you used to buy the package. It was so affordable. It was 10 cents. And then you dumped in 10 pounds of sugar. So it's so interesting to have people like you who really have made this your life's work to help and educate others. And the important thing is starting with those kids, because the younger they are, they will never forget these things. They will. How many of them will adopt a lifestyle off of this? And that's where you get change at. Because when the younger people have that energy to demand what they want, so how receptive are the children? What do they say when you're teaching them this stuff, though?
So, it's very interesting. We watch a transformation occur. So in the beginning, you might hear comments like, well, I ain't no slave.
Wow.
When you try to get them to touch a shovel,
Oh, wow.
get in the garden, or, oh, I don't eat vegetables. I don't eat tomatoes. Those are gross, right? Well, what they're used to is, what is available. And so you go to a store and there's just a conventionally grown tomato that was shipped after
Right.
being picked green so that it doesn't bruise upon trucking across the continent to get to your plate. That green tomato is gassed upon arrival at the grocery store to turn it red. That doesn't mean it has any nutrition or flavor. So this is the stuff people are used to. When they taste a vine-ripened tomato from our garden, and that burst of sweet, juicy deliciousness, that crunch of that carrot they grew themselves in the ground, that has a whole other meaning and a whole other taste. And so we get to watch transformation.
Wow.
We also do a lot around what else can food be used for. Yes, it's really good for your health, or bad depending on how you treat it. But what else can it be good for? You could sell food.
Right.
And
Yep.
make a living.
Yeah.
You can become an entrepreneur.
Right.
We have several kids before high school becoming entrepreneurs and starting their own businesses, incubating them through our programs and the farmers markets and things like that. At our gala coming up in a couple of weeks, a couple of our students will be giving a speech and talking about their journey. We've hired one of our students to be a photographer at the gala. So it's all about demonstrating all the different possibilities, and that really the sky's the limit. You just have to be exposed to it. And sometimes, when these kids are coming from communities where it's just like, let's get through another day.
Right.
And sometimes you don't have that luxury of thinking about all these things you can do. And an entrepreneurial component has been really wonderful to work with our kids on, because you see so many innovators in these classrooms. Poverty is not easy. Poverty can be very challenging, but poverty can also create innovation.
Yeah.
And these kids are just amazing at it, and they see their families constantly making ends meet, constantly hustling to do what they got to do. So they have that example. So let's just transform some of the approaches so they can break free from some of the generational stuff that's been shown to them. And I'll never forget one of my entrepreneurial programs. The first one I ever did a specific class just around entrepreneurship. We want to run and ask our students, well, what do you want to see? Like, what would you do? What would you start? What would you incubate? And I'll never forget when one of our girls, and she lives close to where our farm is in East Cleveland, she came up with the idea to make a bulletproof blanket
Wow.
so her and her siblings can sleep safe at night.
Wow.
The gunshots. So that really impressed upon me. Something I never forgot. It's a darn good idea, but man, the need for that is just horrifying to me. But I understand. I've spent a lot of time in these communities. You hear gunshots all the time, and I couldn't imagine the type of trauma these kids are unpacking.
Wow.
So taking that and then doing something creative and positive with it definitely gives you a sense of ownership in your own community and in your own life and future and family. And you know now that there are other options outside of some of the stuff you just see regularly.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff.
So you got the farm. So so how does it work? You have the kids at the school. You're going in talking to them, and then how do you get from the school to the farm? And then we know that you offer the opportunity for them to. Where does it come in? What products or produce that they're going to be selling at the farmers market? So how do you go from teaching? Do you ask who wants to do this, and then you only take people who want to do it? Do you all still do a field trip to the farm so that they can see the stuff being grown? How do you do this?
So all of the above, really. I started this garden back in 2020 because I couldn't go to schools during 2020.
Okay.
And these kids needed meaningful, engaging opportunities, educational opportunities, experience. I mean, the social emotional devastation those lockdowns took on our kids, is irreversible. And I wasn't about to just close my doors when so many of the groups that's all it went totally virtual or stuff stopped happening. I'm well, we're needed now more than ever. So we built our farm, and one of our schools actually closed permanently 2 weeks before the pandemic, or 2 weeks after the lockdowns. So these kids didn't get a chance to even say goodbye to each other.
Wow.
Except waving in a parade around their school to say goodbye. So I wasn't happy. So we brought our kids to us at this garden, and together we built this garden.
Oh, how many kids?
It was about 10 kids from the other school that came kind of regularly, and some of them are now entrepreneurs in their own right.
Okay.
And so that's how it started. At the time that the pandemic hit, closed.
Did you already have that space for the farming, or how did you get it?
So I've been a major partner with the Euclid Farmers Market for a while because I focus very heavily there because while there is no grocery store in the city, there is food access on Saturdays. Let's build upon that. Let's help lay a foundation. So when a grocery store does return, people know, okay, this is why it's important to eat healthy from here. Let's use it healthy because, if you've been addicted to poisons all your life because that's all that's around you, you're not going to just know necessarily how to use the food that's
right.
So we're trying to lay that foundation and get people to build the demand for this food. And knowledge of why it's healthy and important for you.
Right.
So we've been doing our caravan program with the market since I started the garden program back in 16, 17 is when I launched these initiatives. When I was a consultant to kind of on my own track, doing my own thing. And, during 2020 when everything closed, the president of the market, who's also Food Strong's board vice president, actually donated some space at the garden across the street from the market. And that's where we built it out. And it's been going ever since, and now we use it to host field trips. People can book us
Yeah.
trips. We will create other supplementary experiences in the garden from time to time. People can join in for free.
Okay, yeah.
And then we also are selling that produce now. We just remodeled a pop-up camper into a mobile farm stand, and we're selling our fresh, no pesticide, no chemical produce in communities like where Dave's closed in Collinwood. We're going to be starting to sell our produce there. We sell at the farmers market. We're going to be selling this at the Euclid farmers market that we started a couple of years ago. And anywhere that could use some extra produce that doesn't have a lot of access already, we will be popping up, and we accept food stamps. We do the produce perks, which doubles your money on fresh produce up to $25 a visit. We accept WIC, senior coupons, other things. We just try to meet people where they are. And we do still have the kitchen on this camper, so we can do regular cooking demonstrations and education throughout the process. So not only are we selling this for affordable, but we're also educating about how it's used properly. And I do think that there's something so valuable in the exchange, right? Even if it's your coupons or this and that exchange, now you're putting more value in this product. I do see a time and place for donations too. I think it's really important when you need to make ends meet. Everyone goes through emergency situations, But how do we take that emergency food and not have it be a lifestyle? Because people,
Right.
we want to
right.
make sure we can
Right.
teach how to fish instead of just give
Right.
the fish.
Right.
And it's really important to have that balance of both.
I think from my perspective, with my age and background and knowledge, the thing that I like the most about the farmers markets and people gardening themselves and learning how to garden is getting away from going to these big box retailers who basically they use all of the money that they make, or a substantial amount of the money that they make, to advocate for policies that are against their customers' best interests. And that is the biggest thing that people should understand in this entire process. And so when you talk about the Coit market, farmers market, the farmers market in South Euclid, and then when you say we take all of these different methods of payment, that's the thing that people should be understanding how other communities do things. Before, when I make, X amount of dollars, before I go outside of my community to spend money, how much are you spending in that community so that you all can continue to exist there, expand, and again, as the mission of BlackAnthropy says, provide opportunities for people to learn, for people to get a job, to be able to take care of themselves, and then show the community, what can I do? Like you just raised donations. Okay, I don't want to garden, I don't want to farm, but what can I do? And when we get more people like you starting these organizations, helping other people to learn how to do these things, then we don't get distracted by all these other things, and we understand what really is good for me. So how do these kids go from, the stuff that they do eat, and when you have them taste the fruits and vegetables that are grown right in the garden, right there, blocks away from where they live, how do they, what's their reaction when they start out saying, well, I don't eat that,
The reason I wanted to start a garden program in the first place was because of the fact that there's so many kids that either didn't know what basic fruits and vegetables were.
Wow.
Like I met a girl that didn't know, never heard of celery.
Wow.
I didn't know what it was. We were doing hands on the log, celery, peanut butter, and raisin. She thought that the celery was a spoon. She'd never seen it, never heard of it. And that was just one of those life-changing moments. And so, something inspired me. My higher power at that moment inspired me to say the only way you're going to get these kids to change their mindset or know more is have them get their hands in the soil and grow it themselves.
Okay.
And so we see that, like when there's a transformation. And normally it just doesn't happen overnight. But when a kid sees the magic of going from that tiny seed to bearing hundreds of tomatoes,
wow,
then they're going to see
I never thought of it like that. Yeah.
They're like, that's valuable. That little seed, I had to put work in, I had to put time, I had to prune it, I had to give my attention to it, and then look at what and it's also a lesson on life, not just around food, but anything, right? It takes time. You have to be patient. You have to observe, you have to change based on different outcomes. And then when you taste that tomato juicier and sweeter, when you grew it yourself, you saw the process, and you understand the impact it make on yourself, your body, your community, your health, and your environment. They all play. So when we lay a foundation, when we do our programming, we're not just here's how to garden, here's how to cook. But the holistic value of this action and all the different benefits it can have. So now we're trying to get to different learners, different interests, different learning styles, different things that resonate. There's a little bit of something for everyone, and that's the goal. But yeah, because of that holistic approach, I do think that we're getting more buy-in than if it was just one or two. We definitely don't have a one-size-fits-all model. Every school's different. Every culture's different. And we listen. So you're really, really, really pumped up about entrepreneurship in this class. And the whole class kind of is really getting excited about it when we covered that concept. I might switch things around, and now we're going to go deeper into entrepreneurship. We might end up doing more cooking. Well, guess what? We'll do cooking, but we're doing that through the lens more of entrepreneurship because this is what you're passionate about. And if we listen, then the kids are unstoppable. They're so smart. They're so innovative, and they, having been raised, which for better or worse, with technology, they have a whole new framework on that we can build off together. Like I want to do more content generation with our youth, using TikTok, using platforms these kids are using to spread these messages and reach each other.
Yeah, right.
Because being 41 years old, I'm not going to have a reach the way these kids have and can reach each other. So it's been really powerful. And now that we also have this vacant lot restoration project, which is county funded and partnered with Riddle.
Let's stop right there for a second, because what I want you to do is go back into what even got you started with this, and then we're going to get into the different programs that you have, because you have a lot of unbelievable programs. You were already talking about the caravan, and then you got into the vacant lot. But I want you to get into like what opened your eyes to this. Again, you listen to the BlackAnthropy radio show out of Cleveland, Ohio, produced by NoStaticRadio.net. And today our guest is Miss SARA CONTINENZA, founder and director of Food Strong here in Cleveland. Now, one thing I'd like for you to talk about is your background.
Okay.
What really got you, that experience that you had when you stepped outside of the United States and realized how food is used outside of the United States. It's not always mass production. And then people say they're vegan and all this other stuff with all this mass production food that we're eating. Talk about your background, where you went to school and the different things that you did that helped you, because this is a lot that you're doing. But you have to be exposed to a lot and open to a lot, and you have to be able to also do a lot of research and understand what you're doing to be successful like your organization is to guide other people. This just doesn't happen because you just show up and people listen. So talk about your background and how you got started and what got you on this path to the realization that food is medicine.
Absolutely. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit even further. I was raised by some strong women. My mom, she worked for a positive education program, and I would go to the classroom a lot with her at early intervention center, and we would have kids, and I've always been exposed to being an educator in that sense. And watching the impact she made on these lives of these people that she had worked with, and how so many people would literally bend over backwards for my mom. This little blonde-haired, green-eyed lady going into these projects, inner-city communities, and she was family. Right. No one even saw any of the physical differences because they saw her soul, and they knew that she was in it for them, not for any other reason. This was not a job. This was her ministry in a way. And I watched that impact she made, and it always inspired me. My grandmother, in 1943, was a photographer for the Cleveland Press. First woman to not just be a secretary. She was on the front lines with these men in the 40s. And then in her whole life, she was just my rock and my inspiration. She ran multiple businesses by herself out of her house, having been a single mom for many years in my mom's life. So, I had that kind of example too. And then my dad, he was older, he was an entrepreneur, he had survived the Depression, had to leave school in 8th grade, started his own thing, so incredibly smart, even with that lack of education. And so I had a lot of really positive examples. We were never rich, but I went to a school that had a lot of resources, Orange School District. So, but I saw all kinds of different walks of life, all wrapped in one childhood.
Right.
And it really gave me a perspective early on. I always knew I was going to be a teacher. I got my English and education degrees from Ohio State, the Ohio State University. And in 2005, I graduated, not ready to just settle down yet. And I studied abroad in France, so I had the thirst to travel. So I ended up joining the Peace Corps, and I was invited to do a 2-year service in Burkina Faso, West Africa.
And talk about what is the Peace Corps?
So the Peace Corps is a federal program that sends volunteers for 2-year stints in different communities all over the world. So my sector was female empowerment and education. And so my job was to go and talk about the importance of educating the girls instead of just selling them off into marriage for the highest bidder, which was the unfortunate reality there, especially these smaller, rural communities. And I went there, I'm going to go help the Africans. And when I got there, man, it was a life-changing, eye-opening educational experience that taught me what we need to be doing better here in America that we could learn from Africans.
Right.
In terms of, the hospitable nature of their culture, in terms of just looking out for one another and living off the land.
Yes.
And, in subsistence agricultural conditions where it's like you have to cultivate just to survive another day.
Right.
It's awesome because you're so connected to the land and you're eating real food for the most part. But I saw a lot of breakages in the system that were directly derived from here. So, for example, first of all, if the rain or the rain didn't come enough, or the locusts came and destroyed all the crops, you're not eating that much for that season. It's not like you have a grocery store.
Right. That's true.
You grew what you ate. Like people had like the market, they would sell their stuff on the side of the street and stuff to add to it, but they didn't have a grocery store.
Yeah.
Especially not one that had stuff shipped from all over the
Yeah,
world.
mass
It's not in
production.
season or even like grown here.
Yeah.
Like a mango in December. What? In Cleveland? Like,
Right.
but we don't realize these things.
Yes.
Anyway, I really opened my eyes to what we take for granted.
Yes.
Then I also saw a lot of the breakages. So like, why are we supporting through foundation dollars shipping in GMO crop seeds that have the suicide gene? So these crops can't be reseeded year to year. They have to go back and more seeds every year. Talk about dependency.
Right.
Or sending in people to come and put African people to work for pennies on the dollar to ship the resources back out and make the few richer.
Right.
And I watched that happening. But in the same light, I just saw so much heart. I'd never been so welcome in a community.
Right.
They know I'm American, they have more stuff. It was never an issue.
Right.
They always just treated me like family. And it was hard at first. It was eye-opening because I felt uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, what do you think I owe you now?
Right.
That was my American mentality.
Oh,
I didn't realize that it was my American mentality coming in.
Yep.
But it really opened my eyes to how life should be led.
Yep.
We are, by nature, tribal beings.
Right.
We thrive in communities.
Yep.
But here in America, with the money and with everything set up the way it is, it's very isolated and very alone. And if you don't have a strong nuclear family, you're lacking. Whereas in my village, everyone looked after one another.
Yes.
It was a one big family. And so, there was lack of resources, but it didn't really impact any one individual.
Right.
In fact, when I would explain homelessness, they couldn't even fathom it.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Don't even talk about welfare. They're like, what? What's that?
Excuse me? Like, why don't you just build them a house or give them food? I
Right.
don't understand.
Right.
What is this? How are people sleeping in boxes? That's criminal. I
Right.
know. But yet, because of TV and stuff, they were looking at Americans as, this is paradise. No poverty there. Everyone's white and happy, and that was the perspective that TV gave them.
Yep.
And I'm going there. People are asking me if I'm in danger, or if I'm being chased with machetes or they're monkey. Like no one knew, but I didn't know. TV tells you one perspective, and I went in there, and my whole life was just changed for the better. But it really did give me perspective of the importance of fresh foods. Because talk about a food desert, right? I don't even like that phrase. We call it food apartheid now. I've always called them resource vacuums, but whatever you call it, I would have to literally bike because I didn't even have a vehicle. 30-some kilometers, 30-some miles in each direction.
Yeah.
It's 42 kilometers in the hot sun in each direction on a bicycle on a dirt path that wasn't even paved to get fresh food. Right. I had to learn how to dehydrate food and try to process it in a way to conserve it because it was like 120 degrees and there was no electricity.
Right. I
started a school garden program there because I'm like, when we have this lake here, let's use it. Let's benefit. Let's get as much grown here while we can as possible. And then we get the kids doing that to learn skills. And so that was kind of like my first foray into it and seeing that hunger in the rawest form in that sense, right? I was there for 2 years. I ended up coming home for a little bit and then going to Japan and teaching there for a couple of years as well. And now I'm seeing a tiny island with all these resources, all this technology, and this high quality of life and long life expectancy versus the entire continent of Africa, one of the most richest continents in terms of resources, with people starving.
Yes.
So that really blew my mind. And then I come back to Cleveland, still wanting to be a teacher, but not sure how.
Yeah.
And then I got a job at the Hunger Network, doing a wellness program in food pantries and hot meal programs. And then I saw hunger in a whole different light. Because now here, you have people that are overfed and undernourished.
Yeah.
It's not. It's still not food.
Right.
It's just food like chemicals.
Right.
It satisfies some sort of.
And it's interesting that you make that distinction. It's so interesting that you make that distinction.
Yeah, and so when people are accessing just what they can, and with the limited resources, maybe it's all there is a dollar store in your town. there are ways at least to work within that framework and reduce harm. So like we'll go if I'm doing a cooking demo in a community like East Cleveland doesn't have a grocery store, I'm not going to some grocery store to get all the ingredients.
Right,
I'm going
right.
with what's there. And
Right.
then we'll build upon that with fresh foods or whatever we can find, but just showing people that even if you don't have that, this is what you got. We can still make a plant strong dish that's nutritious for your family and way cheaper than fast food. Now and in the long run. Because sometimes people think, oh, it's affordable now. Well, guess what? The doctor bills are going to pile up. And
I
so
say
the
that all the
savings,
time.
the savings you're making now is going to just, and I've heard a quote, poverty charges interest.
I tell people that all the time. When people say that it's too expensive to eat healthy, I say you can't afford not to eat healthy.
Thank you.
Because, like you're saying, in the long run,
How much more
your
expensive
health
it
is
right?
gonna. And then for me, just constantly, every year you've got to get a new wardrobe. You've got to make all of these other changes to your life as well because you're eating all of this unhealthy food, and it's like, I need to make some changes here. And the older you get, the more you're going to get sick from eating this stuff because of the adverse, like you said, that inflammation that's in food.
Well, the agribusinesses are owned by the same corporations as fast food, as pharmaceuticals.
You're right, right.
And the word pharma is actually derived from a biblical term, pharmakia, which means sorcery.
Again, I listened to Dr. Senyata Amen, and that's one thing that she talks about is a lot of the medicines that the pharmaceutical companies actually sell.
That are derived from plants and along
That's
with
what she say.
petroleum.
And if you know the name of those plants and all of those things, she say that's why it's named. And she'll go straight to a plant that
Doesn't have petroleum added to it and doesn't have all the side effects that make you need more pharmaceuticals.
right. Okay, so now you
And
start.
I'm not against pharma
Mhm,
because I know people that are kept alive because of it.
mhm.
Because they have conditions that are not manageable otherwise. And I'm just saying that it's an absolute crime that Americans that make up less than 4% of the world's population take upwards of 80% of the
Right.
pharmaceuticals in the world.
Right.
That's the problem.
And the bigger issue too is the mission of your organization really speaks to how you can get away from so many people needing prescriptions to begin with. Is understanding, the knowledge of growing your own garden, what you're putting in there, what you're putting in your body, and when you do those things, again, when you use food as medicine, then you don't need the other things because your body's not going to have that inflammation and those adverse reactions to those things, and you're more in control of the things that are good for you growing yourself.
And the thing is, too, a lot of kids, when you first start talking to them, one thing that always resonates is that type 2 diabetes had to be changed in the name because it used to be called adult onset diabetes. And because of all these kids getting so sick,
Wow.
they had to literally change the name of the entire disease to reflect that it was no longer something that if you were older and you've been eating like crap for a while in your life, now you got diabetes. No, kids are getting it.
Yeah.
Kids are getting it. Like children,
Wow.
young children are having all these chronic diseases, these autoimmune issues and things like that. And you look at even like a gluten intolerance, right? How many people 20 years ago did you ever hear about it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And if you know how they harvest wheat that's not organic, they're literally just spraying it with Roundup so that it can be harvested easily.
And then the interesting thing too that you bring up as I listen to you talk is when you get diabetes and a doctor or someone tells you that you have this, how much time do people take to actually go and understand what that means, what's
What their
diabetes,
diet, how
what
their
the
diet affects
history, first of all, just the history of what is diabetes, and then taking that to, like you're saying, now how does that impact what I've been doing for myself? Because I think that is so interesting. I remember years ago, I had a fibroid tumor, and I was in the hospital, and I asked the doctor, I said, well, why did I get this? How did I get this? And they were just so dismissive of like, oh, just black women get it. And it was like, oh no, that's not an answer, right? I mean, didn't they
That's
teach
not
you
an
more than
answer.
that in law? I mean,
So
in
if
medical
I
school?
do have a bigger risk factor, what is it about my
Yeah.
lifestyle or genetics that created that risk factor for me, so that you know how to address it?
And that's why I'm like, no, and so those are all of the little bitty things that made me start just every year, every day, just paying more and more attention to what I am putting in my body to help me understand why I am having the different issues that I am and how I can minimize needing medical procedures and consultation, because it's disappointing because sometimes they're just regurgitating what's in the book. And it's like, wow, you went to school, just, it just seems like something is off there. I don't know what it is, but it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Let's do this. Let's get into some of your programs.
Sure.
So your caravan program, talk about that, and why did you feel a need to start that program? Because that seems like one of your biggest programs.
Yeah, so caravan, the idea used to be a van, right? Van. But the meaning changed as the program, developed. I started it with a good friend, Amy Budish, Armin Gersh's wife, and we started together because she was really passionate about the food security issue. And so we talked about, like, well, what could we do when we were talking about the idea of a van at the time. There was another, like the cornucopia place was selling fresh produce out of their van over in the Kinsman neighborhood near Riddle, where one of our and I didn't want to reinvent wheels. So let's just bring all these different resources in a convoy of a caravan, a convoy of different resources, wraparound resources, health screenings, cooking demos, music, art, and all kinds of different things that we bring together once a month at the Coit Farmers Market, as laying that foundation I was talking about earlier. But we also go to the places we're up for hire in other locations. If you're doing a health and wellness event, or if you're having a block club party or whatever, that we can get involved in those things too. We have a smoothie bicycle now. We'll bring out to different events. You have to pedal just to get your smoothie made. And what we do with the caravan is, like, every month you come, you visit the different wraparound resources. Maybe you taste the cooking demo, get a house screening, you get coupons. Those coupons are good to spend on anything at the market. So now you're able to get access to food, support the local economy, and also be incentivized to take advantage of all these different resources that are available to you, might not have known about. So that's what we do with caravans, and we, like I said, we've done them in all kinds of places: Public Square, West Side Market, different farmers markets, potlucks, things like that. People were available for hire for that. An offshoot of that, but its own program, is called Care Strong Project. This is a partnership with University Hospital and the CASE PA program. And we bring clinical students out to offer health screenings and discuss how food is medicine and how diet and lifestyle directly connects to your health outcomes. And then seeing that blood pressure check in live time gives people that kind of, sometimes, the momentum they need to make those changes. Like, whoa, I really have high blood pressure. I'm not invincible. I think I need to start thinking more about how I'm treating my body now. And we build these relationships, and we build trust on all sides. So, for very good reason, a lot of people of color have very low trust in healthcare. Mm-hmm. I understand. Why wouldn't? Why would you trust? But if you look at the history and how things have gone on, and the thing is, it's really important to have a primary care provider, one that you trust, someone that can build a relationship with you, so you don't rely on emergency services.
Yes.
Now you have your stuff all in one place, as on record, like, hey, like, just keeping up with your numbers. Hopefully not needing, other interventions, because you kind of were on it early, especially if you have risk factors, right? So building this trust between the students and the healthcare professionals and then our clients. Now they're going to be more likely to go and pursue that primary care physician, which we help connect people to. Okay. Those students now are going to be able to go in their careers. They're going to have a much better understanding of the people that they're serving, the conditions these people are coming from, and they're going to be more likely to be like, you know what? I see you need some food. Let's talk about how you're going to get that fresh food. Because I acknowledge now it's not just taken for granted that you can just get this stuff that I'm telling you to eat, right? Or, do the things that we're, if you're in a community that's unsafe to even take a jog, I understand there might be some barriers to your health and wellness. Let's talk about what we can do to bridge those gaps for you. So you're going to have a better understanding. Because I feel a lot of the inequities in healthcare have stemmed from that lack of understanding. Oh, you don't eat healthy? What, you just lazy? You just don't care? No, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into that. So that's one thing we do with Care Strong. And then
I just had a guest on last week, Latanya Ford,
Oh, Latanya.
Yeah, and
she's
she
great.
was talking about this. She was talking about how it's changing now, where the healthcare professionals are learning more about, where people come from and communities and things like that, so that they can treat people according to that. So that's really interesting that you say that basically Case Western Reserve University, this is part of what they're
Their
doing.
PA program, physician
Their-
assistant, yeah. So their
yeah.
physician assistant program is really community oriented. So they have to do different community service just to get their hours to graduate.
Okay.
And for a while, we were the only ones doing anything food strong during 2020, 21, 20, and part 22. So actually, those students, even though it wasn't clinical, like if they came into the garden, they would get those hours. And so we were actually told that we were the first place that a lot of them had even met each other as students in person. Like, so it really
This
helps,
stuff doesn't even
brings
sound
people
real.
together, right? And yeah, so we love our partnerships. It helps do a lot of important work.
And you got a lot of partnerships, and I want to get into some of that too. But talk about your learning gardens and youth development program.
Yeah, so we started in the schools, and we still focus mostly on the schools. But then, like I said, we also host field trips.
You started this in 2000 when?
I started building out the curriculum in 2016 in
Okay.
partnership with the Cleveland School District, with whom now we are building even a further partnership with the nutrition department and science department, and we're looking to go district-wide.
One thing that I'm learning here as I've started BlackAnthropy that I'm not sure that I guess sometimes I watch so much or listen to so much finance news, which is more national and more world news, that you really don't see. I think it's so good that Cleveland Metropolitan School District is getting so many people in to provide these services to students. There's a whole other issue and question with all these contractors, but there are so many people that are starting these nonprofit organizations that the schools are leaning on to help come in and teach these things to these children.
And that was a blessing out of COVID, if anything, because of the fact that they had some extra dollars to spend to bring people in, and there was so much need for social emotional learning
Wow.
that like they had to fill those gaps. And so that was actually a blessing. Now our challenge is, well, how do we keep funding this now that the COVID dollars have dried up? We got to keep hustling to make sure this program can continue to happen because we don't want to backtrack.
So people listening out there, we don't just bring people on to talk about what they do. These organizations, something you talked about earlier, Sarah, that I wanted to, that's another big motivation for me starting this radio show is people give to these major national nonprofit organizations, and a substantial percent of that goes to salaries. Then the organizations that are out there doing a work like yours, I mean, like you're saying, how are we going to survive? Well, if you get through the paperwork.
Yeah.
You got to go through all of this paperwork, and if people would start just like with the garden, start, shopping right in your own community, supporting the organizations that you see making an actual difference, it would make such a big difference. Every organization, including Food Strong, has a website with how you can donate and give. They have fundraisers. They need volunteers, and so I hope that, that's part of my mission with this is that people learn, let me give directly to these organizations that are out there doing this work and not doing a lot of PR all of the time.
And we have so many ways to get involved. Your donation, you might not be capable at the moment of giving a financial donation. Times are hard for a lot of people. I get it. But if you want to be involved, you can come volunteer. We have plenty of volunteer positions for our gardens, for our school programs, things like that. We can always use extra help. And so, but yeah, I mean, that's a really important point, and people can always go on our website and donate directly on the website or through our social campaigns. We have Venmo and Cash App, Food Strong CLE, on all social media, on all donation platforms, Food Strong CLE. But on top of that, there's other ways to be involved. So we have an annual gala coming up on September 13th. And that's at Lago. My board president, Nicole, who's done such a tremendous job with us. She owns Lago, and we throw a great party together. That's on our website.
You like that, producer?
Yeah, that's a wonderful opportunity. We're going to serve a bunch of fresh foods from our gardens, and some of our students are going to give a talk, and so people can get involved by coming to the event and or helping us promote it and or volunteering at it if you can't afford the tickets. Like, we try to make sure there's an avenue for anyone because it is such an important cause that everyone should be part of it. somehow, whatever they're able. So that's something we're doing. And the one thing I did want to talk about in terms of our programs, another big one, is our vacant lot restoration project, which is funded by the county, and it is a partnership with Red All Green Partnership and the county land bank. And we've been doing a lot of work because I was going back to that justice piece. The most important thing you can do for long-term justice is own land, owning resources.
Yes.
So we've helped several groups now acquire ownership of properties in their communities and giving them the resources to launch various community activities such as maybe it's a garden, hoop house, a gathering space, a pocket park, and incorporating sustainable agricultural practices throughout the process. So we were very proud of that.
Talk about that a little bit, how you all help people, organizations acquire land, because that's a very big and important project. A lot of people, they complain about the look, the aesthetics of their neighborhood and stuff like this, these vacant lots. How do you all help people to, because the city is overwhelmed with that. The city of Cleveland is overwhelmed with that, aren't they?
So when it's with the county, county land bank, it's as simple as talking to the county about, hey, this land is going to be good for this use, for this good purpose. We sign off, we've worked with them, we know that they can help sustain this. But if it's a city-owned property, they're right now in a lot of change in terms of, they just hired another, after a 2-year gap in having a city land bank manager. And, all the directors are very, like, wearing a million hats, right? Like, all kind of doing a lot, you have new administration, so there's like dust settling from that. Still, there's a lot of stuff. So helping people with the city-owned properties has been a big challenge, and that's something we're learning through the process of as well, because you have to deal with the politics, you have to deal with administrative departments. There's so many different realms you got to navigate for that, and it's something we've been learning a lot too. And it's fascinating because we are in the sector. We are directly partnered with a lot of different private, public, and nonprofit agencies. Yet we have a hard time navigating that system with other people. So I can only imagine if you're a resident and you're just trying to navigate the system on your own without having that type of resource, how much even harder it can be. And that's why we're very passionate about that work, is trying to help people fill in gaps whenever possible and try to help get those connections made.
Talk about your culinary arts classes.
Yeah, so besides what we do in the schools, which we incorporate regularly, how to cook and process food and preserve food and things like that, we also offer a series of culinary classes in the community. It can either be as a demonstration where I show people, or we can make it interactive where people, everyone gets a cutting board, everyone gets something to do and helps pitch in making this dish together, depending on the size of the group and if it's an event or just a class. And we'll do that with all ages. I'll go to senior homes. We go to kindergarten room. I mean, it could be anyone. But the important thing is that we get people excited about like how you can prepare food in a healthy way. So we do all kinds of stuff, whether it's cooking or just talking about the work and how to use food as medicine. We have a lot of different programs.
Talk about your volunteer cleanups at the market.
So all year round, rain or shine.
All year round.
Third Saturdays of the month from 9 to noon. We have at the White Market volunteer events. So if you want to give back, come out on your weekend, come up for a few hours in the morning. We serve refreshments. You can see the real, like the immediate changes of your intervention, of your work that you did, because it automatically looks better and prettier. And we help the market get some of their stuff in order whenever we can.
What's the address for the Court Market?
It's 15,000 Woodworth Road, East Cleveland. It is a little piece of history, and we're going to sooner than later see an agricultural renaissance coming right out of East Cleveland, because it's a blank slate, it's a blank canvas. It just needs groups to come together to fight this battle.
And then talk about your farmers markets. How do you establish your relationships? What goes on there? What goes into having the actual farmers market? Because that's a lot of work.
Yeah. So being on city council in South Euclid, I was able to work with the city to incubate a public nonprofit partnership farmers market. So now the city has taken over and they're running it themselves, but Food Strong helped incubate it for 2 years. And it's about getting the different vendors, getting vendors there, getting the word out. That's always the hardest part, especially getting produce vendors. It's getting harder and harder to but you don't make a living to selling produce. Yeah. All the inputs you have to make, all the investment into time and resources to get that food, it's hard. So to be able to like have the luxury now popping up and hoping to get good sales, it's hard. So that's actually why we incubated our own food trailer to sell produce out of the farm stand, because there's not a lot of that available right now. So we did that to fill in that gap while being able to bring revenue in. But we had the farmers market there. We partnered with the Flats East Bank Farmers Market, but it was happening after COVID, so it just kind of really put a damper on it. But we have learned a lot through these different processes of starting and running farmers markets.
Now, I wanted to get through your programs because I want you to talk about a very important part that can be easily overlooked, and that is the staffing that you have in order to be able to do all of these things. Talk about when you set up your Food Strong. How did you go about saying what positions you need and then identifying who to hire to put in those positions?
Well, one of the first full-time positions I needed was a teacher, because running educational programming and shopping for the programming and writing your lesson plans and getting everything together with just like 2 part-time interns or Vista from the AmeriCorps program, it was a challenge to try to do all that and run the organization and write grants for the organization and run the other elements of the organization. It was just too much. So I hired Stephanie last year. She's been there just over a year now, running our educational programs and taking it to another level. She's a biology teacher. She's lived all over the world. She came to me soon after I had asked my higher power for support, because I didn't know what to do, and I had a couple teachers just not work out.
Okay.
So that's been tremendous, and then I really needed like an administrative person.
Okay.
So tried a couple of things, didn't work out, and then a dear friend of mine, Katie, stepped up to the plate. She's been keeping us, helping us get organized, things like that. I am now also just hired. Today was the first day for another full-time educator, Tulani, and she is going to be doing taking on a lot of classes as well to help free up our full-time teacher to build out our curriculum and other things. So we have that, and then we also have a lot of part-time contractors that help us, farm, doing building, help with the gala, and fundraising. There's different people that are brought on for different components of our work as well.
Okay. Well, as we wrap up here, I want to thank you again so much, one, for all of this work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Because somebody has to be teaching the children. I don't like it when I hear people say that the children now are a waste of time. They don't want to learn anything or do anything. And so it is always refreshing when I, read about organizations such as yours that are actually doing something to help young people rather than just giving up on them. Because they're going to be the ones in 5, 10, 15, 20 years with the energy that we're going to need to support and advocate for us as we get older and have less energy to do this application for ourselves. So I am so grateful that you have this program. I don't live far from the Coit Market, and I need to get my butt over there and start, supporting all of these organizations that are doing these things and finding a way to volunteer. Because a lot of what you do, a lot of your stuff you do May through October. What do you do October to April?
Well, in our programming, we emphasize more of the culinary arts, the entrepreneurial piece, laying the foundation of why we're doing these gardens. So come spring, the kids are really pumped up about what they're about to do. But we're in the schools all year round now. It used to be a seasonal program, but there's so much demand for our program all year round now that we just do it all year round now. We don't do as many outdoor caravan type programs, but in those off months, I'll be sent out to different housing developments and do cooking demos and education and bring our smoothie bike out to some event or things like that.
So what's the smoothie bike?
So you have to pedal to blend your food. So you can do smoothies in the summer, you can do hot soup in the winter. But either way, it's healthy eating, active living. That's how you heal.
Okay.
Healthy eating, active living.
Okay. Well, there's so much more we could talk about, but I know you got stuff to do.
Foodstrong.org. You can subscribe to our newsletter, and you can learn more. We get occasional updates from us. We're Foodstrong CLE on all platforms. Check us out, like us, follow us, help us spread the word. That's how we get the momentum we need to keep this work going.
And most of your pages you have right there where you can sign up and get the newsletter.
Yep.
Where can people find you on social media?
Food Strong CLE on everything.
Okay, all right.
And then Cornucopia on the 13th of September. It's going to be an amazing time. We're going to have some of our students employed at the event and or giving a speech about how Food Strong has impacted them.
All right, well, we'll definitely be trying to bring you back because I want you to bring in a couple of the students because I want them to talk about their experience.
Yes.
And we talked about a lot about food, which is, you know, the genesis of your organization. But I want you to talk about when they come. I want to talk about the entrepreneurial part because we didn't even talk about that, and that's a big part of the Food Strong ultimate goal is to get people to learn how to do this stuff for themselves and find markets to participate in and sell their, their products in. So again, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on, accepting my invitation. You know, I learned so much from having you on, having people on. My videographer, he does the clips for me. He was like, I learned a lot editing those clips for you. So I'm sure he'll, learn a lot again once he starts to edit the video for this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, No Static Radio, for producing the BlackAnthropy Radio show. And we did a show today because next Monday is Labor Day. It's a holiday. And so we will not be doing the show then. We'll be back the following week with, again, more new guests trying to get through and track down as many people running nonprofit organizations, entrepreneurs, and for-profits that are impacting the life of individuals, families, and the community. I'm going to track down every last one of them before I go outside of Northeast Ohio to invite other people in. And so that's it for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And don't forget to go to foodstrongcle.org.
Foodstrong.org is our website, and Foodstrong CLE on all social and donation.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. And
thank you guys.
Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
We'd like to thank you for tuning in to BlackAnthropy with your host, Coffee, here on the station where we don't bring no static, but we sure enough bring the noise on staticradio.net. We want you guys to make sure that you check us out on social media where we absolutely love to hear from you on Facebook.com/, No Static Radio LLC, or at No Static Radio, all one word. On Twitter at also known as X now. I have to change the logo at No Static _radio. At on Instagram at the real _ no static radio, on YouTube at No Static Radio, as well as our newest platform, Discover.tv, which will be changing over soon from No Static Radio to Decisive Media. Also, if you guys would like to listen to replays of this show and others, check us out on Mixler or Mixcloud.com. Just type in No Static Radio, all one word, in the toolbar for replays of this show and all others on the platform. And for continuous streaming, that means no refreshing the page, you don't do anything. Let it rebuff on its own. They might throw in a couple of commercials for your entertainment, and boom, you got us on TuneIn.com, LiveOnlineRadio.net, or MediaQ for continuous streaming of this show and all others on the platform. And for all things No Static Radio, including up-and-coming events, merchandise, and an in-depth look at all our great show hosts here, please check out our website at www.nostaticradio.net. You guys, we want to thank you so much for tuning in on this Motor Mind Day Monday. And you know what it is. Coming up at 2 p.m., we've got the Hustle and Wax Flow and everything else, followed by Drag Racing, Ultimate Sport, and More Than Me CI. Until then, you know what it is. We got more music for your listening pleasure here on your voice of the revolution on staticradio.net. Powered by Google, partner with Colors, and sponsored by Lamont Avenue Wines, the Cleveland Rugby League, and Design Exclusively. You guys be safe. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.